Hello and welcome back to Knits by Lizzy, where we believe you don't need fancy yarn to make beautiful knit garments. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Lizzy. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm a vegan knitter and PhD student from New Hampshire, and today we have a super packed episode, just a normal podcast episode. It has been more like 3 weeks since my last podcast episode, and I usually have been doing them around 2 weeks, so I have got extra stuff to talk about today. Today we're going to be talking about two finished objects. One of them I'm wearing, which you might recognize, and the other one I actually haven't even talked about on this podcast at all. It has been cast on, knit, and bound off since my last podcast episode, and it is my very first test knit as well, so I am super excited to talk about that one. It is a test knit for Gregoria fibers. And then also, because I have all these finished objects, I have several new cast-ons. I also have cast on the Esther sweater and a sock that I have to talk about today. And I have a kind of little surprise at the end where I'm going to show a stitch marker that I actually made myself. So if any of this interests you, please feel free to stick around and hang out with us as we chat about some knitting. First on the agenda today is what I am wearing, and this is my first finished object that I'm going to talk about. This is the Monday sweater by Petiteknit, and I cast this on August 13th and finished it on September 17th. So it took me around 5 weeks to knit, and I was knitting on it while I was knitting on several other things, including my all-over cabled billy pullover that I discussed in the last episode. And I knit this for the apple picking cow that Emily Curtis hosted, and I actually just released a video about the whole process of making the sweater, so if you want a lot of details on it, feel free to jump over to that video. But the kind of stats on this before I get onto my general comments is that I knit size 1, but I didn't do all of the increases, so it's kind of like I knit like a 0.95. And if you recall from my last episode, I had a lot of confusion when I was knitting my sleeve that I wasn't at the right stitch count, and it was like I had just forgotten that I wasn't knitting in actual size 1, and I was trying to like do all this math to figure out why I hadn't knit the right, why I didn't have the right stitch count, but actually when you don't do all the increases, that means you don't have the full number of stitches on your sleeve. So it was kind of like halfway through the second sleeve that I realized, oh, that's just what happened. Like I didn't actually do anything wrong, which I was like trying to figure out what I had done wrong. Yeah, no, I didn't do anything wrong, I just didn't do all the increases, and so then you don't have all the stitches on the sleeve. I do think that the fit for me, not doing the full size 1, worked out perfectly. So I knit this on 4mm needles in Highland Stylecraft Highland Heathers DK in the color Thrift, and it is this purple marled yarn. So I will zoom in a little bit so you can see. So it is this yarn that is like mainly purple, but then it's got these darker purple and lighter purple marling, kind of like heathering. And so I really wanted to knit this basic raglan to show that off. And so I used only 3 balls of this yarn, and I didn't even use all of the third ball. It was more like 2.5. So my total cost for this project is that the pattern cost me $7.71 that I just purchased off of Ravelry from Petiteknit, and the yarn, 3 balls of this yarn only cost me $10.35, and that brings the total to $18.06 for this knit garment that took me about 5 weeks to knit. So that's a pretty good deal in my book. Yeah, so my general thoughts on this is that it fits really, really well, so well that I think that the next time I need a basic raglan, either for myself or someone else, I probably will turn to this pattern again. I'm also very curious what it would feel like to knit this in a fingering weight yarn held with some sort of mohair type. Like as I said, I'm a vegan knitter, so I have an acrylic mohair that I really like to use, and the project I'm going to talk about next is the first time I've ever used it, and so after knitting that project, I now kind of want to knit everything with this mohair that I've discovered. So now I kind of want to see what it would be like to hold like kind of a sock yarn, an acrylic nylon sock yarn in a fingering weight plus a mohair for this sweater. I think that'd be really nice. So if I do end up knitting this again, I think that's what I would go with. just to see like how the fabric would be. I do like how this feels. So this is, I knit this in just a single strand. I knit this in just a single strand of that DK weight yarn. It was like a tiny bit scratchy before it was blocked or anything. But once I washed it, it definitely softened up a bit. So this is probably like the scratchiest acrylic that I've encountered. So honestly, I don't think that I would purchase Highland Heathers again. I do love this color, but especially for an acrylic, it wasn't as soft as I was expecting. Maybe this is because it's got different acrylic fibers like going together in order to get this heathering. I'm not exactly sure, but it was not quite as soft as I was expecting. But yeah, as I said, washing it, just throwing it in the washing machine, another benefit of acrylic yarn, just throwing it in the washing machine and the low setting on the dryer did help kind of soften it up a bit. So yeah, I think that this is just a really staple sweater to have in your arsenal, and I think that I chose to knit these to the right lengths for it to be really wearable for me, and I just have a feeling that I will get a lot of wear out of it this fall. I did wear this apple picking, which is the whole reason I just knit this sweater, like I said, for that cow, and so it was a lot of fun to kind of have a purpose for the garment in knitting it, and then its first wearing out occasion was that apple picking, and so that was a lot of fun. All in all, 5 stars, I would say. Maybe 4 out of 5 stars on the yarn just because it's a little bit more scratchy, but I have a feeling that this pattern might come up again for me, but not for a while. Alrighty, let's move on to the other finished object that you guys have actually never seen before that I knit for a test knit for Gregoria Fibers. So this is the Anais sweater that I test knitted for Gregoria Fibers. I test knit size 1, so the smallest size, and this is a follow-up sweater version of her Anais tee that has already been published. And so just like that tee, it features this large central cable that is very prominent. It is slightly more on the fitted side, so it only has like a couple centimeters of positive ease. And then the sleeves are, I wouldn't call them balloon sleeves, but they're just like kind of more fitted but straight, and then they cinch in at the end. So I knit this exactly to pattern, of course, because it was a test knit, and that includes all of the lengths. And I almost never do that. I pretty much just try things on as I go, and then when I feel like it's long enough, I stop. But for the test knit, I just knit exactly the number of centimeters that she suggested. And at first I was a little skeptical that it was gonna be too long, but as you'll see from the footage that I'll put in here, the fit was absolutely perfect, including the sleeves. And I think I actually tend to have slightly longer arms than someone of my size. I'm really fairly short. I'm not even 5'2", but my arm span is actually longer than my height, so I have a little bit longer arms, but the sleeves actually still fit perfectly. So the pattern overall actually ran into 0 problems, even though this was a test knit, meaning that, you know, the point of the test knit to see if there's any little snags that you come into while knitting the pattern, so that when people go and pay for it, that it's all checked out. And it went really, really smooth. They didn't run into any problems. She ran it through a Google Doc, so if there was any small issues, you could put on there. But overall, super smooth experience. And I cast this on September 18th and finished it on September 29th. And so I knit this in 11 days. So even if I had filmed my podcast episode at like my normal cadence of every 2 weeks, it still would have been a finished object that you guys had never seen before because I knit it in 11 days. I was so obsessed with it. And I mean, there's also like that motivation of it being a test knit that kind of like, you know, pushed it along, but it was also just super fun, and it's a fairly big gauge, and so it just goes faster, and then it with being more fitted, then it will go a little bit faster as well. So super duper fun. It also features this voluminous hem, so it kind of like puffs out at the end, making it really, really feminine, and also really feminine, and also not like anything else that I have in my wardrobe. So I think that this is really gonna be it's adding some nice like sweater diversity into my sweater wardrobe to wear it for different things. And my size 1 ended up being 88 centimeters. And the yarn that I knit this in was a combination of Hobbii Amigo in the color Dark Steel, as well as Lamy Yarn Soft Sensations in a gray color. So these are my leftover skeins. That is the Hobbii Amigo. and then I held it with this Lamy Yarn Soft Sensations. And this is the acrylic polyester mohair, quote, mohair, mock mohair that I discovered, and this is the first garment I knit it with, and it is so soft, and I really enjoyed the marling effect that happened by holding these two together. And I ended up breaking into 5 balls of the Amigo and 4 balls of Lamy Yarn Soft Sensations. So all in all, the cost of this project for me was $10.75 from the Amigo yarn and $8.76 from the Lamy Yarn Soft Sensations, for a total of $19.51, because of course the pattern was gifted for the test knit, so I didn't have any cost there. So definitely disclaimer, I did not pay for this pattern. So actually very similar cost to the one I'm wearing here, about $18, $19. So again, really affordable project and super fun. So I'm not exactly sure when the pattern will be released, but I believe the test call, or like the testing period, is going to be ending within the next week or two. The test was only 4 weeks long, and so my guess is that the pattern will probably be coming out like within the month. Again, big asterisk here, I don't know for sure. She hasn't said anything about that, but based off of when the testing is, it's probably going to be coming out fairly soon. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Yeah, like I said, the pattern was super smooth, so I highly recommend this, and it is so freaking cute. And so I went to a local thrift store recently, and I actually was able to find some brand new, with the tag still on them, these black chunky heeled boots. And I just think that wearing these boots with some black jeans and this sweater, I wore them like literally the next day that after I got those shoes, I wore that outfit, and I felt just like so chic in my like little feminine sweater and the like really cheap but brand new black boots. It was so cute, and yeah, I was like really happy to have that find, and I am just really excited to have this sweater in my wardrobe. I do think now that because I knit this Gregoria fibers pattern, this testing, that I might not get to the Judy Sweater this fall, even though that was in my original plans. Just because, you know, there's only so much time, and towards the end of this video I have a couple other plans to talk about, and so I think that I might not end up getting to the Judy Sweater this fall. However, I do have the yarn. I purchased yarn for it a long time ago with the intention of knitting the Judy Sweater, so I do want to get around to that eventually. However, now I am thinking that I want to hold the yarn that I bought for that with a mohair, maybe. So yeah, we'll see, but I have a feeling that this might be the only Gregoria fibers pattern that I do this fall, but I'm not getting rid of the Judy Sweater. I'm just pushing it a little bit. But yeah, this yarn combination again is so soft. It was like my favorite acrylic yarn base, Amigo, plus this new mohair, and so now, like I said, I just want to add this mohair to literally every project that I had in mind, and I really wish I had some kind of like sampler from the yarn company of every single color of that mohair, so that I could like compare a few strands of each color to what I'm gonna like hold it with, so I could see. It's just so hard to tell online, but I really wish that existed. I don't think it does. I know there are some yarn companies that will sell samplers where you can get just like a card that's got several strands of each color, of every single color of one type of yarn that they sell, and so then you can see in person what the colors really look like. I really wish I had that for this mohair, because I have a feeling that I'm gonna be ordering this like so much, basically for every single project. Yeah, like for example, I was gonna hold a black mohair with that dark steel yarn for this project, for the Anais sweater, but I ended up going with that gray, partly because my order just never came in, and actually still hasn't come in, and I've been in conversation with the yarn shop that I ordered it from about this, and we're basically just like waiting for UPS to talk to us about what happened, but I had intended to hold a black mohair, so now I'm gonna have some black mohair coming in. On that order, I did also order some brown mohair to hold with some brown yarn that I got in Copenhagen for my book club cardigan by Sorry Nordland that I'm gonna make later this, probably towards the end of the fall, honestly, maybe even into winter, probably. But yeah, I wanted more of this mohair, basically. So if you recall from my last podcast, I was debating about which mohair to use because of this ordering situation, but I just pretty quickly after that podcast actually is when I cast on and started knitting. I was just like, I this is a test knit. It has a deadline. I have this mohair here already that will work, and I had a plan for what I was going to do with that black mohair, which it comes in, which is my plan is to make an April cardigan. So it's not like that black mohair would go to waste or anything. So I just dove right on in, and I'm glad that I did because I really like the effect that it caused. But yeah, super good experience overall. I really loved just being a part of the knitting community, like contributing to the knitting community and doing a test knit. And the test knit went just like really smoothly and everything, and I like knit this so quickly. So I think that's all I have to say about the Anais sweater. Definitely let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so those are my 2 finished objects, and so now I will move into my works in progress, of which I have 2 right now. So my main work in progress that I am absolutely loving is the Esther Jacket by Petiteknit. So the Esther Jacket is a all over textured, really thick cardigan, which is why it's called a jacket instead of a cardigan, that I really love her, the color that she chose to knit her sample in, and so my garment is in a very similar color. It's got these all over diamond, texture that I think is just, 1, very, very fall, screaming fall to me, and 2, is just really classic, and I think I'm gonna get so much wear out of it. And I've discovered that I do get a lot of wear out of my cardigans, even though I've knit more pullovers than I have cardigans, and so I'm really trying to knit more cardigans in general. So that's why I just started this Esther cardigan, this Esther jacket, and then I also have that book club cardigan by Sarah Nordland on my queue, as well as another April cardigan by Petiteknit on my queue. So I think with all of those, that'll be a lot of cardigans, but I think I won't wear them all. Oh yeah, and I want to knit a red wrapped cardigan for Thanksgiving. So that's a lot of cardigans in my future. So I'm knitting this in Stylecraft Special DK in the color Parchment. So here's one skein. And since this is an Aran weight pattern, I'm actually holding this DK weight acrylic yarn double in order to achieve gauge, in order to achieve that like thickness of the gauge that is intended for this pattern. However, I did not meet gauge that the pattern suggests by holding these together. It's a little bit, my gauge is a little bit bigger, but let me show you my progress, which there has been a lot. I cast this on October 1st, so that was 4 days ago. And this is where I'm at. It is very difficult to hold into this frame. There we go. So this is where I'm at. I have actually already joined the back and the 2 fronts. So maybe I'll like zoom in on the texture here so you can see. It is so squishy. This Stylecraft Special DK is like so plump and so soft. It's actually way softer than this Stylecraft Highland Heathers, which is like same yarn company, 100% acrylic yarn. I don't know why they don't feel the same, but this is definitely softer. And because I'm holding it double, it's like a really, really thick fabric and really squishy, and I'm absolutely flying through this. I am knitting size extra small, so the very first size, even though that is not what would correspond to my bust circumference. My bust circumference would be, I think, an extra small instead of an extra small. However, my gauge is 14 stitches for 10 centimeters instead of the suggested 16 stitches for 10 centimeters. So I'm going to be getting a much bigger garment just by following the extra small size. I'll be getting a much bigger garment. And I have to do that because of, I think I'm going to be playing some yarn chicken. Okay, so I bought 5 skeins of this a while ago. I didn't have a pattern in mind. I think that I was reading a lot that I like to just like research different vegan yarns and see what people like, and I've gone through a lot of kind of trial and error to find some good ones, and so I've tried a lot of different acrylic yarns. And when I was looking at what acrylic yarns people really like, people were talking about Stylecraft's Special, and specifically Parchment, that people really liked this Parchment color. And so I just ordered a sweater's quantities worth of this color. But I wasn't expecting to be holding it double when I purchased it, or I would have probably gotten at least 1 more skein. So I got 5 skeins. Whoop! Yarn down. So I got 5 skeins of this. But I'm holding it double, which means I really only have like 2.5, and so I have, between all 5 skeins, I have 1,932 yards in my stash with all 5 skeins. And so if I hold that double, that means I have 966 yards, because that's divided by 2. So I have 966 yards for this, and the pattern calls for 957 yards for the small size. So I have like just exactly the right amount of yarn, and that makes me really, really nervous. And I am almost actually through my first 2. These are my 2, oh my god, they're like really loose right now. These are my 2 skeins right now, so they're almost done. And I have done both, like I've completely finished the yoke, but I'm really not sure if I can finish the body and both sleeves and a button placket with only 3 more skeins of yarn. One thing I was thinking of is that I have another kind of cream yarn that is not the exact, it's not the exact same color, but it is cream. I was debating doing the button placket and then the collar in a different color, but they would be like close but not exact. I almost feel like that'd be worse than doing something that was like totally contrasting color. I don't know. If you have any ideas about how I can win yarn chicken here, please let me know. I might end up, another thing I was thinking of was doing the body and the button placket and collar first, and then like making the sleeves a little bit shorter in order to make sure it's okay, because I can't, if I run out of yarn like partway through the button placket, which is like normally what I would do last, I think I'm totally SOL. I'm probably gonna have to order more yarn instead of being able to use something else. But maybe I could do something where I do just the, maybe I could do like just the cuffs of a sleeve a different color and you wouldn't really notice. Man, I don't know. Maybe I should just order more yarn, but then I could get a different lot, which I guess for acrylic yarn, different lots aren't usually crazy different. So I don't know. Yeah, I might just, I don't know. I could also just keep going and trust the pattern. And it says that I only need 957 yards for the smallest size, and I have 966 yards. So I think, I don't know, it might end up being okay. We'll see, but regardless, I am absolutely flying through this. I knit the entire yoke in less than 4 days, and it is it's such like a squishy design. I love it so much, and my plan is to get some brown toggle buttons, like those long and skinny buttons. For this, I know Petiteknit recently released I think it's called like the Dagmar jacket, something like that. Starts with a D, and for that jacket she has toggle buttons, and so I think that she's now selling toggle buttons on her store, so I might buy them from Petiteknit. That seems like a little bit extra though. I could also just like go to Joann Fabrics and find some toggle buttons. That's probably what we'll end up doing, but if I want some like legit toggle buttons, I can always order them from Petiteknit. So we'll see what happens. It might end up being that. Oh, another thing I was thinking of, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about all the yarn stuff, was that I might end up picking up fewer stitches for the sleeves than what is called for, and that's going to help me a lot with yarn usage, I think, because it seems like pretty much there's been a lot of people who have said that they felt that the sleeves were too big. I've looked at some Ravelry projects, and there are several of them where it looks like, and even on hers, where like the sleeve, especially right where it's joined, is kind of like poofing out, and like that, I don't want that. So I think that the stitches for the sleeves might be a little bit too many, and I think it'd be really easy not to pick up the same number that is called for, even though it's a texture pattern, because I think there's like some just like basic moss stitch on the underarm, I believe, and so I could just take out, you know, groups of 2 or something, so I'm able to maintain that moss stitch texture of knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, but with less stitches. So I think that'll help me. Maybe that's just all I need to do in order to get, in order to keep yarn chicken happening. It's so funny because I almost always way overdo it with the yarn, where I've got like multiple skeins of yarn left. Like I have 2 untouched skeins of this Stylecraft Highland Heathers for this project. So I've got, yeah, I bought way more than I needed, and I tend to do that. Too much so, like I'm trying to be better about properly estimating how much yarn I need. But this is the first time I've really run into where it's very, like, I could run out of yarn and I don't like it. So I'd rather have too much than too little. But yeah, I'll keep you updated on this. I'm really happy about it. This might end up being my last garment that I knit for myself before I cast on the holly sweater that I'm planning on casting on in November just for the holidays. I want to cast on that holly sweater by Pernilla Larson in November so that it's 100% done by December, so that in December I can wear it all the time. Because I have some gift knitting coming up. All of a sudden I was like, oh wait, if I want to knit anything for Christmas, I need to be doing it like right now. So I think I'm gonna be casting on some gift knits, which I'll get to in a second. So this might be the last selfish knit for a bit. And so I should just really savor it because it's so cute and I'm gonna wear it all the time. Oh, I forgot to mention I'm knitting this on 5mm needles, which is what is suggested. So I just wanted to keep with the suggested needle size and just have a bigger gauge in order to get a bigger garment, but still be able to knit the small size in order to win my yarn chicken. All right, so my last WIP, which I won't spend a ton of time talking about, is actually a sock. So happy Socktober, everyone. So I cast on the Hollingbourne Socks by Charlotte Stone. I don't have much to show. Like, I can tell I've really been focused on the Esther Jacket. Also, I had kind of a busy work week, which is why this podcast is coming out a week later, so there was a little slightly less knitting time. But I basically just cast on and knit just the cuff and a few rows into the sock. Right after I finished my Anais sweater, and I was like, oh, I don't have anything to knit on, oh my god. And so I was like, I need something. And so I just cast on this sock and knit the cuff, and actually I did all of this in one evening, one session, and then I haven't worked on it since because of the Esther Jacket. And I cast this on because I was inspired by the fact that it's Socktober, and also I was inspired by, I believe Brooke Willow is her name on social media. The name that she goes on social media is holding a cowl in which you are supposed to knit something from a physical book that you have, which I think is such a splendid idea because I think lots of people, including myself, have knitting books that we don't tend to knit that many patterns out of. And so it's a good motivation just to get that little like push to like, oh yeah, let's actually use those books. So I am knitting this out of the, look at that in frame, the 52 Weeks of Socks book that is from Lane Publishing, which I think you've probably heard of this book before. Lots of people talk about it, and I got this for Christmas last year from my sister, so thank you, Janelli. And I haven't knit anything out of it yet, and so I was like, oh, this is perfect for Socktober, and this cowl, I'll knit one of the patterns. And so this Hollingbourne pattern is a colorwork sock pattern that I wanted to knit out of kind of like autumnal colors. So I'm using a brown and a gray color in order to knit this, and this is Barocco Comfort sock, so it's about like 50-50 acrylic and nylon. I've used this before to knit socks for my boyfriend, and he really loves them. They're like really soft, and it worked out pretty well. And so I have a lot of this sock yarn that I bought a long time ago, and so now I'm finally using it, which I'm really happy about. And I just cast on the very first size. I have struggled in the past with kind of like gauge and sizing for socks. I still haven't figured it out for myself because a lot of sock patterns come in like 56, 64, and 72 as the sizes, and I have found that 56 is too many stitches for me. I think my feet aren't that small. I actually have kind of larger feet than you would expect from someone my size, but I think because I tend to be a little bit on the looser side, I just have had some struggles with getting the gauge right, and so I'm actually knitting these on, I believe it's 2.0 millimeter. Yeah, I'm actually knitting these on 2.0 millimeter needles. So I'm hoping that that's going to help out. I just decided to cast on the very first size, which is not 56 stitches, and just kind of trust it and just go for it, and then if partway down the sock it's not fitting, I guess I'll just rip it out or something. But I was thinking like color work is going to be tighter, and so it might actually work out that if I just cast on the suggested size and using this really small needle size, which is smaller than what it suggested, that it actually might work out for me. So that's going to be working on in the background. I have had a lot more called to work on the Esther Jacket, which is why there's so much work done on that instead of these socks, so it's like very small. And I just got done knitting that large gauged Anais sweater, and the Esther Jacket is kind of large gauge, so it's kind of like shock when you go to 2.0 millimeter needles. So we'll see. I'm really hoping to get these done in October, but just kind of work on them when I feel like it, or if I get sick of whatever other WIP I'm working on. So yeah, that's the other WIP that's gonna be going on in the background, but I do have some plans for things that are gonna be cast on very, very soon, most likely before the next podcast episode comes out, so I wanna talk about those as well. So the other things that I have planned that are more definite, but I think that I've got some other things floating around, is that I got some requests for Christmas gifts recently, and then, like I said, it kind of spurred me to realize, like, oh, yeah, Christmas is coming. If I want to knit gifts for people, I probably should start right now. So I'm glad that they sent in some requests. And so my mother requested some socks for Christmas, and I have made the Petal Drop socks before by Florence Miller, and she really, really liked how they looked, and so I am going to knit her a pair. And so I ordered some sock yarn for her, because even though I have some cream colored sock yarn left from when I knit mine that I could probably get a full another pair of socks out of, I actually really don't like the yarn that I picked for those pairs of socks. I did, I think it's Cascade Yarn's cotton socks, which is 90% cotton, 10% nylon, and it just does not have enough nylon in it to be good for socks. So I'm going to use the yarn that I have left of that for probably a tank top in the summer. But she wanted a cream color, and I don't have any other cream sock yarn, and so I ordered from Cascade Yarns, I ordered some cherub socks, which I do have some other colors of that type of yarn, but I've never made socks out of them, but it seems really soft. So I ordered a cream color, I think it's Ecru is the color. I already ordered that for her, so I think that it's just as soon as it comes in, I'm going to cast that on and try to knit those in October for Socktober, and then just save them until Christmas, and I think that it'll go pretty fast. My Petal Drop socks I knit in 1 week. It was all I was knitting, but I knit them both socks in 1 week, so I think I could probably knit it by the end of October. So I'm gonna make that for her, and it also is gonna be a little bit of a test for a white fingering sock yarn, because for my holly sweater, my plan is to hold a fingering sock yarn plus Lamy Yarn Soft Sensations mohair together for that sweater, and so I want to test out which white I'm going to be using, because the majority of the sweater is white, and acrylic yarn tends to be, in my opinion, good for basically every color except for white. It just seems like the fact that acrylic yarn is kind of shiny, you can really tell in white colors, and I personally don't really like that, and so I find it hard to find a good cream color for acrylic yarn. Actually, I found that this parchment color from Stylecraft Special is actually a pretty good neutral acrylic yarn. So if you like, it has like a tiny bit of that shine, but once I worked it up, especially in that texture for the Esther Jacket, it's working totally fine. So I definitely recommend this. So I'm knitting those socks for her, and in the same time I'm going to be using that as a test for my holly sweater, because I think there is a really good like cranberry looking red as well as a leafy looking green in Cascade Yarn's cherub socks, and so my plan is to order those colors for the colorwork kind of part of that sweater, and then if I could use the same yarn type for the rest of the sweater, that'd work out great. And so I'm hoping that this Ecru color is going to work out, and then I can hold it with a white mohair, which also might help a little bit with the shiny part. If I've got a mohair, that it will kind of like all just kind of meld together and it won't be so shiny. So that's what I'm doing for that. And then my other more concrete plan is my stepdad actually requested a sweater for me, and I knit him a zipper sweater man by Petiteknit for Christmas last year, and to my delight, he really, really likes it and wore it last, in the colder months. He wore it quite a bit and wants another sweater for Christmas. And so I am going to cast that on soon so that I can knit it without any sort of like stress for Christmas. Obviously for gift knits, I want to start as far in advance as possible, because obviously the knitting experience is supposed to be fun, and I don't want to like stress out any sort of deadlines. His birthday is also in December, and so I think the sweater can be kind of like a combo birthday Christmas gift, because obviously sweaters take a bit of time. So when he requested another sweater, he kind of wanted just another. I asked him what he wanted, and he was like, oh, maybe just like another zipper one. But then I suggested, oh, what about kind of like Henley with buttons? So he really liked that idea. So I'm going to be knitting Henley, and I did like a really quick search for just like different Henley men's patterns on Ravelry, and one that I came across was the Georgetown Henley by Alison Griffin, which is a Knit Picks pattern. So I think I have to buy it from the Knit Picks website. It's not a super expensive pattern. I think it's $4.99 $9.99, so that's like pretty good for a pattern, and it is specific for men, so I think that'll help it be help with the fit. I think it's got some sort of like color work thing going on. I'm not exactly sure. It says that you're only knitting one strand of color at a time, but it seems like you can see two colors going together, and he really liked the photo that's just like part of the pattern, so I'm going to try to get just like a blue and a gray yarn to match the pattern, and it's slightly more fitted, and he is probably like a men's medium, so I think that for a men's sweater this won't take me too long. Like, I think it'll take me less time than the Billy pullover that I knit for my boyfriend, one because my boyfriend is larger than my stepdad, and then also that was like all over cables, and I knit that in about 2 months. So Christmas is more over 2 months away from here, away from like today. It's like 10 weeks away, and so I feel confident that if I just start it and work on it when I feel like it, and you know, just like a little bit by bit, that I should be able to get it done by Christmas. So those are for sure happening because I got like specific requests from them. But then I started thinking about what I wanted to knit for other family members. So family members, if you're watching and you don't want any spoilers, don't stop watching. I was thinking that I might knit some socks for my brother to wear with his Birkenstocks. I was thinking just maybe this same, I was thinking that maybe this like brown, I have like several skeins of this brown sock yarn, and I was thinking of making some ribbed socks for him. That might be fun. And I also was thinking of making a cowl for my stepmom. I know there's like lots of really fun color work cowls out there, and I think that that would be really fun. I think she would enjoy like all sorts of like funky colors, so I might look at see what I have in my stash and be able to like combine some leftovers. Like, that would be really great, and make her a fun cowl. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but both of those wouldn't take as long, so I'm not feeling as like, oh, I should cast this on right now. The only big one is my stepdad's sweater. I should really cast on just so that I definitely have enough time to knit it. Yeah, so those are my current plans, and I do have one last thing to show you, which is stitch marker that I made myself. So the university that I work for has a like jewelry studio, and I didn't know about it. I've worked at this university for several years, and I didn't know this even existed, and then my coworker was telling me about it, and so we went, and I was thinking, oh, what should I make? Of course I should make a stitch marker. And so they literally just have like metal supplies, and then they teach you how to do things with metal. And so for my very first time there, I was just like working with these I was just like working with these like copper, I believe, was it brass? Maybe brass, or I think it was maybe brass. These brass wires, and so I decided to make a stitch marker that was, hopefully you can tell, is like a ball of yarn and some knitting needles stuck into it. And so I am so proud of myself. Made this with my own two hands. It's so fun. And that's like another thing I was thinking of, is that it might be also cool for Christmas to go make some things out of this from this jewelry studio for my family for Christmas. My stepmom, that I was thinking like, oh, maybe I'll make a cowl for her. I think she would really like some kind of like eclectic jewelry that and she would like appreciate it being handmade. So I might make her that either instead or in addition to. But yeah, I made this stitch marker myself. It might be fun to make a whole lot of them. I am worried though, I haven't actually used it yet. I am worried that the knitting needle part of it is like gonna be too pokey, and it might like end up like poking into the work and picking up stitches. Like, obviously I wouldn't like undo them, but it might just like kind of like pull them out. Like when you get your like sweater caught on like a nail or something, it might be something similar to that, and like that wouldn't be good. So I don't know how functional it will be. I have put it on a needle, and the hoop that I connected it to is big enough for like most needle sizes. Like, I don't usually go up further than 5mm very often, and it fits on my 5mm needle. I think it would even fit on maybe up to even like a 6mm needle, so I'll be able to use it for a lot of things. I might make other stitch markers that reflect things that I like. Like, I have two cats that I really enjoy. I do already have a lot of other cat stitch markers, so maybe I don't need that. But for example, another hobby I have that I really enjoy is running, so it might be cool to make like a little shoe or something, stitch marker. But these things are like a lot harder than they seem. Like, I feel like this, like, I don't know if you would actually spend money on this if you just like found this in the store, but It was, yeah, because it was like a lot harder to make than it might seem at first glance. But I was happy that you could kind of, like, I think you can kind of tell what this is supposed to be, so I was proud of myself. So I think that maybe I might be a little ambitious thinking that I could make a shoe. But, we'll see. It's just fun to make things. It's kind of like, you know, the knitting has inspired me in terms of letting me, you know, you realize like, oh, there's a lot of things that you can actually do yourself, and it's fun to do yourself that you might not think of. Like, if you had told me 2 years ago that I could knit a sweater in 11 days, I would not have believed you, and that it would look good, and that I would like want to wear it. Like, you know, you're capable of more than you think you are. But yeah, I do think it's true, and I think it's really good for us to like use our creativity and try out new things. So that was really fun, and I think like trying this new, to me, it's still not quite new anymore. I'm at about 2 years. But me learning this hobby of knitting and being able to like make things with my own hands in a way that I've never done before has empowered, that's the word I'm looking for, has empowered me to realize like, oh, you can do a lot more like DIY than you think you can. So yeah, I think that brings us to the end today with the 2 finished objects and the 2 whips I have and that stitch marker. So if you enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe, and I'll send lots of big hugs to everyone, and I'll see you next time.